discussion about COVID-19. So just a little bit as far as the agenda, we'll do some quick introductions from our facilitators. We'll go on to some licensing board updates for both Minnesota and Wisconsin. This is a joint Minnesota and Wisconsin section meeting. We'll talk about some society resources that ASCE has. Talk about legislative updates, how the pandemic has affected what we're doing on the legislative side of things for both Minnesota and Wisconsin. We'll talk about challenges that people are currently facing with their various working situations, and then strategies for tackling those challenges. And then we'll talk a little bit more about ASCE Minnesota and how we can, the resources that we have. So today, myself, Ariel Christensen, I'm the Director of Communications for the Minnesota section. I'm a structural engineer and I work at SEH. Hannah?
Yeah, this is Hannah Albertus Benham. I'm Director of Awards for ASCE Minnesota section, and I work for Wood as an environmental consultant.
This is Jennifer Schaff. I'm a technical resource engineer at County Materials, and I currently serve as the ASCE Wisconsin section secretary. Ariel, was Nancy Burson able to join us today out of curiosity?
I was just going to look down the list.
Okay.
I don't see her, but she had invited a few other folks as well. So
very good. This is Canon 1 of the ASCE Code of Ethics. Engineers shall hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public and shall strive to comply with the principles of sustainable development in the performance of their professional duties. We are essential workers, and we want to have this discussion today with members and explore what our place should be throughout this pandemic. Next slide, please. We wanted to get a flavor of the demographic on the call today. If you could relay to us your ASCE section and branch if appropriate. As a reminder, please go to menti.com on your laptop, smartphone, or tablet and enter the code on the screen. You'll see our first question appear, and the graphic before you is populating with the responses. The numbers shown reflect the number of attendees from each section and appropriate branch. Give a few more seconds, but you can see we're pretty Minnesota heavy.
Yay for social media.
Next slide. See that it looks like we still have a majority of Minnesota on there from what I can see. So please respond next with your infrastructure sector. 2 inputs are allowed here. The responses will show up as word clouds on the slide. Another way to learn a little bit more about who's on the call with us today. Pretty wide variety. That's good.
We've got 94 total attendees. Looks like about 69 people have responded right now, 70.
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of a lag on the video or visual side of things. So.
Another challenge, right?
I think I'll keep moving, but everybody's getting the hang of the Menti. I like it.
Yeah, great. So I think it'll take a minute for the slide to pull up here, but one of the first pieces of information that we wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of is from our licensing board. So I had a conversation with our board here in Minnesota, the architecture, engineering, land surveying, landscape architecture, geoscience, and interior design board. Won't say that again, but just to be clear. So the Minnesota Board of Licensure, I'll just refer to them as that from now on. They wanted me to make sure that our members are aware of a couple of things. I know I received an email and some mailer notifications of this, but if you haven't received those notifications, I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware that the NCWS has canceled exams for the spring, and they're waiving some of the fees as well to get re-signed up for some of the later exams. Impacted examinees have been notified of that, and those with applications into our local board that are impacted by this cancellation will be able to sit for those rescheduled exams without, so that's something that will happen automatically. They won't have to reapply or contact the board for permission. And they should also keep an eye out for additional details from the National Council as well, so the NCWS, regarding re-registering for those exams. As far as PE renewals, they wanted to make sure that we're aware that there's not going to be an extension of that renewal. That's something that's written in Minnesota statute, and so it's not up for the board to change that. So the renewals are due by June 30th of 2020. They have opened up the renewal period early, so you can go online and get that renewal taken care of now, if you so choose, but with the important caveat that you must have all of your continuing education courses completed at the time of renewal. So they will be conducting audits, and that's something that they'll be looking out for at the board. So one last note, in order to stay informed, you can go to their website, mn.gov/AELSLAGID. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a section to enter your email address. Just note that that's not something that they automatically sign you up for. So that's something you have to manually sign up for yourself. So turn it over to Jennifer to talk a little bit about Wisconsin.
Sure. So spring PE exams were canceled, and more information is to come on that. I've been told. We contacted Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services to inquire if there would be some extension on PEs that had licenses expiring in the near future, and we have yet to receive a response to date. However, DSPS did issue a blanket memo dated April 8th stating they would be accepting requests for continuing education waivers for licenses that are renewing during the public health emergency. The request will be considered on a case-by-case basis. If you're interested in the waiver, you're directed to include with that request a personal statement explaining how and why the COVID-19 public health emergency prevented you from completing your CE requirements. And they encourage you to prioritize your licensure requirements and explore remote CEU offerings. This memo is available on the homepage of the DSPS website, and the Wisconsin section has also posted a link to it on their social media outlets. We'll continue to monitor that situation. Next slide.
Thanks, Jennifer. The next slide is touching on some of the what's going on at the national level. So the ASCE Society has developed this COVID-19 Collaborate site. So it's at collaborate.asce.org/COVID-19. So that's a site that's, like I said, has been recently set up by the Society as a resource for all the members across the globe. You can find thoughts on how to cope with some of the different challenges you might be facing, some as they relate to the profession and some not. An example being there's activities for kids on there via the STEM at Home program. And I also wanted to point out that the ASCE podcast that they've been doing, which is called Plot Points, it's just called Plot Points. That's something that's been going on, I think, on a monthly basis. And at the moment, in April, they actually are doing an episode every day. So ASCE Plot Points is calling a different civil engineer from around the United States every day to find out how the COVID-19 pandemic is affecting their life, their community, and their work in the civil engineering profession. So in the next slide, we have another Mentimeter question. So if you go back to Mentimeter, and you'll see the next question pop up, and that is, what are some of the continuing education options that you know of? So I'd like to reiterate that obviously with ASCE membership, you are given 10 free PDHs as part of the membership. So that is definitely an option. There are other groups that are offering free online courses. So what kind of other technical webinars or maybe some local things are being offered that folks on the call are aware of? I'll give you guys some minute here to answer, and this is just, again, just answering with a short answer, 250 characters or less. One of the other things that was mentioned when I talked to the licensing board was actually that there was an architecture association that's offering a free ethics seminar. And so I thought that was really important to point out that, you know, some of these seminars, especially when you think about ethics isn't something that's specific to civil engineering. And so that I'm sure that there's a lot of different options out there related to that alone. So just something to think about as a reminder. Some of these things might not be in the usual places. It looks like there's a lot of really good answers coming through. So I think one of the things that might come out of this presentation today that is really good is assembling this list, and we can put this back out for our members after we're done today. So really appreciate those answers.
All right, in the interest of time, I'm going to keep moving. Just like everything else in our lives right now, some of the activities on the Minnesota section level have been impacted by the pandemic. Just wanted to give you guys an update. We have both a report card committee and a legislative committee in Minnesota, and our last infrastructure report card release was in 2018. That is one effort that's not being halted by the pandemic. We're continuing to work towards a 2022 report card release, so we've still got a few years yet. But the research and such starts now. So those activities will probably start in the fall, and you might see something as soon as this summer to cue you in on those upcoming activities and gauge interest from membership. The Legislative Committee is monitoring how the COVID-19 response legislatively is going to affect this year's bonding session, which greatly impacts our work. Our legislative activities have paused for the time being, seeing that, as you see in the last bullet point, legislators are mostly working from home, and lots of other discussions are happening right now at the Capitol. However, on the society level, those discussions continue and are actually being prioritized. We'll talk a little bit more about this later. Just a brief update on our section activities as it relates to report card and legislative.
Wisconsin is also working on a report card due to release in 2020. The last report card that we did was in 2007. Our original schedule was for release in April of 2020. We're now considering a June release. We've engaged the public relations firm for advice on the date and the possibility of a virtual release. And we've been working with ASCE headquarters on information on that. Apparently there's a couple of states that have gone that route already. Meetings are ongoing on this topic and more information will be forthcoming. Next slide, please.
All right, Hannah, you're up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had myself on mute. We're switching gears a little bit. This question is, which of the following best portrays your mental health since the start of the pandemic? So just getting a feel for how people are doing right now, and you know, obviously it looks like a lot of people are kind of in the middle right now, and just shows that, you know, there's a broad range of feelings going on right now, and that you're not alone. I think we can all kind of commiserate on this topic. All right, so the next question that we have is, what is your current work situation? So maybe this ties into the last question. That might have an influence on your feelings, but so are you working from home? Are you still at the office or on a site? Are you taking time off right now? Are you maybe unemployed or taking a pay reduction? And I think we're kind of lucky in one way as engineers. I think a lot of us are desk rats, but along with civil engineering also comes field work often, and you know, eventually we can't really do our jobs without getting out into the field sometimes.
Especially with our environmental permit requirements.
Right, yeah, I'm in the environmental sector myself, so it's been interesting. It's a challenge, but I think a lot of the work that I've been doing, or that my folks in my office have been doing, is work that doesn't require a lot of people in one space, and it's usually outside. So I think that's helped us kind of continue through and maintain some normalcy with the work that we have. Looks like a lot of folks are in the same boat, but a few have unfortunately had to do some maneuvering and are in maybe not not as good of situations due to COVID. So maybe move on to the next question. What are the challenges then that come along with this? So the first one being, what challenges are you facing working from home, or if you're working in the field or in the office still? And this is another open-ended question, 250 characters or less via Mentimeter. I think you can also submit multiple answers as well. So if you hit submit once, I think you can type in something else and submit the second one. So I see kids on there. I feel like that's a big one. That's it's going a little under the radar a little bit, maybe. I feel like parents were really expected to take on a lot working from home and trying to manage school that's online now. And I know some folks took time off in order to try and deal with that. Internet, that's a good one. I definitely feel the pain on that one. It's especially difficult sharing screens, audio issues. I have just defaulted to using my phone all the time now for conference call audio because too uncertain using your computer.
I commiserate with the lack of, having some paper resources that I'm used to having, and then just feeling like I'm on my computer all day long,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I put in time management. I feel like not so much that I'm not able to be productive. It's just that I tend to be working longer hours now. So it almost feels like I'm working more now than I was before.
Agreed.
Lack of sunshine. I hear that. Very strange weather today we're having. Okay, so I think in the interest of time, we should move on to the next question. And that question is, do you have any tips working from home or in the field or office right now? Anything that you've found that's working really well for you? Something that maybe you hadn't thought of before?
I was on an SME call yesterday, and one of the ideas that was brought up that I thought was really good was if you're running a team to block out time on your schedule as it suits you as like an office time, so that if people need to reach out, they know that you're available then instead of, taking calls whenever people need you.
Yeah, I think boundaries is a really, really good one, especially working from home. Beer at lunch. I don't think that ASCE can endorse that one, but I like where your head's at. Yeah, setting up a home office, I think, is a really good one. I already had kind of a setup before this happened, so I was lucky in that respect. I know a lot of friends and coworkers are struggling to, make that work. You're just working at your kitchen table, then you have to tear your workstation down every day, and or you're dealing with all kinds of other distractions. Getting out and exercising sounds like a common theme. A Wi-Fi booster, yeah, I've thought about that as well. I had about a 2-hour phone call a couple weeks ago with CenturyLink, trying to figure out how I could make my internet faster. So that might be a good next step. I think there's a lot of really great answers coming in here. We're going to have to figure out how to assemble this list and get it back out to people. I think a lot of this will be really useful. We have some tips coming up in the slides here, but I think a lot of it's probably already been covered. And you can continue to enter in answers even if we're moving forward with slides, just so you know. I don't know if Ariel, we want to move forward. I know some of these take a little longer to get answers in, but I want to be cognizant of the schedule today. So. So some of the tips that I came up with, I wanted to touch on first strategies that I found just doing some research, and I think the ASCE website has some of this information as well. I kind of tried to assemble it in my own way, but working at the site or in office, obviously washing your hands and wiping down surfaces regularly is really important, and I think something that everybody is implementing now, whether you're working from home or somewhere else. And then making sure that you're still following the local social distancing guidance. The other points here are really in relation to people. There's a risk of getting sick, bringing it back to your families, and other stressors that influence how people are interacting now if you're here in the office or on a job site. So some of the plans you can implement for some of the staffing contingencies are maybe dividing your workforce up into teams so that you're limiting exposure to a smaller group of people if one of your team members do end up getting sick. So you can kind of isolate your workforce into these groups and manage it a little better that way. Other options are maybe having a backup team, so keeping your management staff or maybe some of those more essential work staff off-site to avoid that risk. And then there's other options for staffing, like bringing in some recent retirees. And then the last point here is about more or less encouraging your workers to make sure that they're not coming in to work when they're sick. So one option there is to potentially pay your hourly workers regardless of the number of hours worked, recognizing that during this time it might be a little harder to get all those 40 hours in, and we don't want folks coming in to work alongside everyone else when they're sick. We don't want to incentivize them coming in when they're sick. The next slide is about working from home. And a lot of this, like I said, has already been brought up, but I think self-care is probably the biggest one. that can't be underestimated. Things like keeping your work and home life separate, scheduling and taking breaks, and making sure that you're still maintaining friendships and those outside of work activities. So planning virtual events, maybe doing a happy hour or yoga, or even meeting outside, walking or going to some of the trails around while you're making sure to maintain those social distancing guidelines. Making a plan each day and sticking to it, I think, is really important. You might not have a to-do list written down or any kind of formal manner, but I think that kind of ties into setting your schedule or setting aside, that specific time during the day where you're working, and then making sure that others are aware. And then the last one is, again, having a dedicated workspace. So you're able to keep that separation between your home and workplace. Gives you a place to go so that you can kind of maybe fall back into that sense of normal. And then the last slide I have on this is strategies for virtual meetings. It wasn't something that I was originally planning to talk on, but I found some good tips on that. So over communication is really important during this time when we're all communicating electronically and virtually. So it's really important to make sure that you're clear, and if you have questions, make sure and reach out on that. Be more deliberate about asking questions and listening. Remember that not everybody has the same capacity for this type of environment. Not everybody shares those virtual and electronic skills. Taking notes on people's mood or feelings, I thought, was a really interesting one. It may sound strange, but especially right now, it's important that we pay attention to each other and reach out if something is wrong. By writing this information down during regular meetings, you might find patterns so you can reach out to someone if something seems off. And the last one is just having an agenda and being prepared so that your meetings can stay on track and you end up accomplishing the intended goal. So switching gears a little bit, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer and have a few more questions for you.
So as you're putting projects together for bidding or in the midst of looking at projects, how are completion dates being handled? Is it business as usual? Are you putting in maybe a minimum or a maximum number of working days? Are you sticking to hard completion dates? Like the focused on virtualization as much as possible. That's great.
Let me know if you want me to pause on any of these.
Mm-hmm.
like most people are conducting business as usual. But I like that some are saying that, you know, clients or the company is understanding that it's a difficult time, and you know, things are a little bit more fluid right now, and just communicating some of those potential delays seems helpful.
I was surprised to see such a resounding business as usual response.
Mm-hmm.
First three that came up, and then almost nearly all of them.
Material orders came up a couple times too.
Yeah, that seems to be the case for me anyway. I know some of the logistics had to be rearranged. I've been a part of a lot of meetings that had to be canceled or postponed. So just adjusting to some of those logistics has pushed dates around a little bit, but
okay, Ariel, it looks like we're getting some repeats. Do we want to? So what challenges are you facing moving towards web-based platforms for pre-bid, bidding, and awards of contracts? And we're hearing a lot of people using for pre-bid and bidding. Curious to see, you know, there's a lot of municipalities that are closed. If you're getting pushback on trying to make those contract awards or doing any of these things virtually.
I just had 2 pre-bid and bid meetings a couple weeks ago. Right, it was at the beginning of this was the pre-bid meeting, so we quick moved to online meeting. You had to reissue all the notifications to bidders, which went pretty smoothly, except for the few that didn't get the memo, and then we still had people show up in person. And then we were putting our client in harm's way, so to speak, receiving all those people. Same with the bids, receiving the bids. So we've adjusted some things, and obviously the environment has evolved a little bit since then. I know at SEH we worked to put some documents together as far as the logistics of those different types of awards and meetings, and how to deal with those as a project manager, how to communicate those changes with the owner. But I know I got several calls from contractors saying, is it still on? Is it still on? Are you sure it's still on?
So we got one question: how do you do a pre-bid walkthrough on a virtual basis? There's no real substitution for walking the site.
What we did for ours is added a lot of photos to the end of the pre-bid presentation. So we did a go-to-meeting just like this, and then I showed as many photos as I could on the screen. So that was lucky that I had all the pictures from the design phase that I could share at that point in time. We did talk internally within the company about utilizing more local offices or partner organizations who might be closer to the site, and still able to work remotely in the field to take some of those pictures or to facilitate that meeting using FaceTime or some other platform. We often don't want to put the clients in that position of having to do the heavy lifting with the walkthrough. So we were looking at options of staying on the consultant side within our company, trying to find people, and if we couldn't find people from there, well, how about another organization that we work closely with that might be able to do the work?
we might be able to take some notes from realtors on this one.
I agree. There was somebody that posted the PM walked the site and narrated a video, which we posted online. That's a great idea.
Yep.
Yeah, Hannah, do you want to talk about that process with realtors just for a few minutes?
Oh, I don't have any experience myself. I just know I've had friends that are realtors that have been posting videos of their properties online for a while now. So that's not something that's new necessarily, and seems like it's applicable here.
Yeah, I heard that, you know, realtors are letting people in a house and then they just go back to their car and let them do the walkthrough without being present.
Sure.
There's a comment, there needs to be a confirmation when bids are submitted that is received. I lost a job recently because the bid review did not include our submittal.
That was one thing we had to coordinate with our bids that we received. We had to make sure that the owner was actually going to be there and felt comfortable being there to receive the bids. And then what if she stepped away for a few minutes? We had to post something on the wall or on her office saying, I'll be right back, wait however long, and then she knew at the bid time to be there right before that. So there are definitely some logistical issues. All right, should we move to the next one?
Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get everything.
Okay, so this question is, what else can ASCE sections, branches, or the society do to help during this time? So we've touched on a few of the issues. So what can ASCE do as an organization to help you, whether this be on the local level, sections or branches like those on the line for Minnesota and Wisconsin, or at the society level? And then also think about our student chapters and our younger member groups. How can we help them during this? So one thing I remember the society president-elect saying at one of the MRLCs was that he wanted ASCE to be like a family, and bringing it back to basics of ASCE being a family. And we really are. It's a very small community when you think about it, especially locally here at the section and branch level.
We could definitely look at doing some ethics PDH for both Wisconsin and Minnesota together, I think, online.
Yeah. Keep us informed of changes that affect civil engineers. Yeah, information is always good right now because you're not having that face-to-face time with people in the office. Hey, did you hear this?
Mm-hmm.
I think there are some virtual competitions going on, at least that I've just heard briefly about during some of the presentations from the National Society. But I don't know any specifics on that right now. I can look into that more if anybody's interested.
Somebody posted, inform the public of what we're doing, which I think is an interesting comment.
We've got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to hand over the screen to Hannah. Feel free to keep inputting. We're going to do a quick demo of ASCE Collaborate because we want this presentation to be the beginning of a conversation. We'd like to keep the discussion going, and one of those ways to do that is using ASCE's Collaborate.
Duluth section commented that they held a 2-hour ethics seminar in March. I wonder if that's available to repost.
Okay, I'm going to try to run through this quickly. I think you all should be able to see my screen.
Yep.
And right now, oh, sorry.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, good. So right now I'm at collaborate.asce.org. And that's something that it's part of the ASCE website, so you can sign in using your normal ASCE society login information. So you'll go ahead and sign in, and once you do that, then this My Groups section will populate, and that should have information or a link, excuse me, to how to get to your specific section or branch Collaborate site. A little delayed because I'm sharing my screen, so I apologize. I'm experiencing internet issues currently. Okay, so that should come up here shortly. It's on my screen, so you'll see it shortly. Down here, like I said, under my group, you'll see some of the groups that you might have signed up for when you sign up for your membership. So, like I have environmental related stuff, but you'll also see your own section, and that will take you to the Minnesota or Wisconsin or whatever branch you're in specific Collaborate site. So this site, the home page kind of gives you an overview of all the different things that are on the site. You'll see latest discussion posts, shared files, announcements, etc. One of the things I wanted to point out is that we can continue this discussion in a virtual way and keep collaborating on this topic. And I have started just a general COVID-19 discussion topic. You can see that right here under discussions. If you click on it, it'll allow you to input a response. And so this is just one way to kind of keep in touch. And I know a lot of folks in ASCE across the United States and across the globe have been using this recently as a tool to keep engaged with the society and the rest of the membership. The one more thing that I wanted to point out is that you will see a members tab here, and this is populated automatically from, like I said, when you sign up for ASCE and for the specific section or branch. So we don't have control over who's shown in this and whether or not they have a photo and that kind of thing. So that's all things that that you as members have control of by going onto ASCE.org and signing in with your login information, and you can change your profile and what shows up here. So those are the top things that I wanted to share. So I will turn it back over.
All right. I have one more question on here, and this one we'll probably have to take offline a little bit because we're running out of time. But the question is, how can we build each other up during this challenging time and stay positive? I like that first response. I think the biggest thing here is compassion. We have to really just understand that everyone's going to be at a different place with this. We've got employees juggling family life and trying to teach their kids at home, trying to get some work done, working at late hours, maybe not sleeping as much as usual. Those employees, if you support them, they will emerge stronger and grateful to the company for supporting them during that time. So one takeaway to think about as you leave this conversation is, how can we make sure our colleagues are supported and treated fairly and compassionately during this time? So let's continue the discussion. ASCE Collaborate is definitely one great spot for that to happen. We've got a few different ways to reach out to your section and branch leadership going forward. For the Minnesota side, we've got ASCEMN.org. Our Twitter is at ASCEMN. And then we also have a LinkedIn site that we regularly update. Feel free to go to ASCEMN.org, and there's links to all of our social media accounts that way. Or if you just go to ASCE.org, you can find the Wisconsin section page. They also have a direct link to Collaborate from their webpage. So keep the conversations going. And just want to mention one thing. In one of the plot points episodes of the podcast, EWB Deputy Director Mike Paddock said, "We want to view this crisis as a call to action. We as civil engineers have the responsibility for the public's health, safety, and welfare. And we're also problem solvers. We're engineers. We can continue to contribute to the solutions to these problems. We don't want to just sit by and remain neutral." So one of the ways that you can do that is think about our drinking water infrastructure grade from the report card. Nationally, the grade is at a D. During a crisis, when our #1 prevention method is washing your hands, let's raise that infrastructure grade. D is not good enough. So how can we make sure that our communities have the critical infrastructure for water, power, and communications? We have to engage and continue those discussions. So in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and sign off. I will open up all the lines, so it might get rather noisy for a minute here, but feel free to follow up with me at communications@ascemn.org or on any of our websites. We've all got our contact information on there for Jennifer in Wisconsin and then for Hannah here in the Minnesota section. Thank you all for attending and taking the time out of your day to chat with us, provide some of these excellent responses. And from here, I'll open up the lines, or I'll talk to you later.
Bye.